folk down the road are changing the world. Want to know how? They're using an approach called transition to look at issues that are affecting more and more of us and that will eventually affect us all. They're looking at how we deal with the ever-increasing price of oil. They're looking at climate change. Cheap oil is coming to an end. We've developed our way of life on ways of doing things that have been made easier and sometimes even possible by ever-increasing amounts of oil. Our use of oil has directly led to the biggest environmental threat humans have ever had to face in the shape of changing climate. Oil is amazing stuff. The energy potential held in just 1 litre is equal to a person doing hard labour for 4 days. But as it becomes harder and more expensive to reach and process, fuel prices soar. And so does the price of bread. Lots of the processes that wheat has to go through to end up as a loaf in our hands are made possible by cheap oil. When oil becomes more expensive, that price is passed on to us through many of the basics that we need to live.
Because it's about localisation, about putting people back in touch with their intimate connection again with their landscape and with their community.
Transition works through community engagement by inspiring people. They move from a feeling of helplessness when faced with the overwhelming size of the climate change problem and what can I do as an individual and what difference will that make.
It felt to me like it was a no-brainer really, that this is the way to go and this was the thing that I needed to get involved with. It was the environmental movement that was for me.
For me it's the first thing that's brought environmental projects and social projects much closer together because it's about your neighbourhood and it's about the people in your street and who you know. And then about what you can do collectively.
We didn't say transition is a good idea, come and join us. We actually said, what are people interested in?
The key to any community action is just the people who are wanting things to change are the community.
But up and down the country, communities are looking at ways to live with much less oil. They're looking at how they get their food, at where their energy comes from, at how they can change the ways they travel. People are taking positive action now to make sure they're ready for whatever comes next. And instead of looking at what the future holds for them with fear, people are finding the communities they live in are becoming stronger, more connected, and more fun places to be.
We now live in a society where a lot of people just work 9 to 5, commute, come back home again, and they don't really socially connect enough. And that makes it very difficult for us to face the challenges that we have. So by bringing events together and meetings and projects that take people out of their houses and get them to work together and socialise, we hope to try and use that strength to solve problems.
It seems to me the issue that we can use, food is the issue we can use to mobilise a lot of people because everybody has to eat. It's also the one where we have lost our food culture and there is so much sort of restoration work to do on that.
I think Scotland is actually, for a Western country, quite self-sufficient in many things. We're a nation that eat a lot of rubbish food in many places because of poverty, yet some of the best quality food comes from Scotland and it's exported at a high price. What seems to be happening, there's lots of different groups in different localities, some being urban, some being rural. There's no one way of doing a thing that fits all. I think it's best that groups actually remain doing things locally. That's what sustainability is about, is doing things locally.
We're just starting to think about what we could do to make a CSA happen in the town. Community supported agriculture, CSA, is one way of thinking about it is as kind of a box scheme but with more commitment. So basically you're agreeing to buy from one producer for say a year so that the producer knows what they're going to get paid and you know that you're going to get a certain share each week.
I think a day like this that's offering a whole range of food skills gives a fantastic opportunity to the community to come in and see all these different things that are going on, activities that they may or may not have been interested in, but just being exposed to it can create that kind of learning appetite that they want to go home and do it for themselves. So I think it's a great opportunity for people to mix.
We want to try and get away from the use of fossil fuels because of the fact that they're not going to be there forever, and we need to sort of start to think about what the transition movement would call the shock of losing our traditional heating methods.
We're looking at things like energy saving, so we're organising events and activities to raise awareness about energy saving issues, working with householders to give them kind of quick and easy tips, show them things that they can do to save energy and save money as well at home, and using energy monitors for them to kind of see exactly how much they're using in real time.
We have a home energy project called Switching On, Switching Off, which is involved in 2 tenement streets in South Edinburgh. We're also conducting a renewable energy feasibility study and other energy surveys in the street to find out what the best options for people are to save energy in their home.
The Climate Challenge Fund has funded our purchase of an anemometer, so that if folk want to investigate setting up a domestic wind turbine, then we can lend them the anemometer to try out and see what their wind speeds are.
One of our main areas at the moment is looking at renewable energy, because we've just worked on a bulk solar thermal project, and what we're wanting now is to build into that a small profit margin so that that money can be then reinvested for new renewable projects.
The majority of people are totally dependent on their cars. And we did a survey to try and identify how many cars were leaving town to commute to the big cities. And out of the 850 cars that we saw at peak time, over 90% of those cars only had one single person in that vehicle.
So we work with the sustainable transport, primarily trying to get the residents of Linlithgow to use their bikes more, their legs more, and get on the bus from time to time. So we've found that a lot of people don't actually realise that there's a path that will connect them from one bit to another, or they don't realise that the bus leaves every 30 minutes. It's all this information that people haven't got that we're trying to give to them.
Colour Free Day is something that we've been doing right since the very start. What we've been able to do is just bring people in and give them a different set of activities to do, and show people what Portobello High Street or parts of Bath Street this year would be like without cars on them.
The funding up here is positive. Obviously, a lot of groups have been set up that perhaps wouldn't have done without that funding. But there seems to be the worry is what's going to happen when the funding stops.
We've put a lot of work into applications for funding over these years, some of which have been successful, some of which haven't. And we've really seen the need to not be trying to ask other people for money.
Funding certainly helps. You know, it allows you to do things at a pace that you wouldn't have been able to do previously.
Funding is going to be a major issue for us. I think we have some very energetic people in our group who may well be able to find additional sources of funding elsewhere, but we are going to have to learn to be much more self-sufficient ourselves.
We've now got a project called Sustainable Ernal, where we do local food growing, local transport, and we also have a micro-hydro feasibility study sort of scheme going on at the moment. And the idea for that is to try and have a renewable energy source that would act as a community income.
There are people from around the city trying to set up a pilot project of having a local currency for Edinburgh, which may or may not be called Eddies. We're waiting to see that. But it's based on things like the Totnes pound, the Lewis pound, the Hoyk pound. And this will be an experiment, first of all, working with local traders and local people to see if we can get a local currency established.
Money is a bridge to a future that's not necessarily going to have money, but it's going to have people contributing their work to be able to have sustainable production for the community. And we need to think about how the transition works through money, and it's working out what you can offer that people will pay for, but also what will people invest in. So asking people in the community, what will you invest in that will actually give you some return, some cash return, but will really build that transition to a sustainable future.
We're trying to create a vision of what a sustainable, vibrant local economy would look like in a low carbon future, and we see the regeneration of the high street as a vital part of that. So we have one group, the Dunbar Community Bakery Group, which is working hard to open a bakery producing bread on Dunbar High Street once again after the family bakery closed 2 years ago now. And similarly, our local fruit and veg and whole food shop, the Crunchy Carrot, which is now on the market, we're looking at how we can organise a community buyout of that and actually bring that into community ownership as a community asset.
The resilience is now happening through actually really on-the-ground events that are kind of self-sustaining in that way, so the market can become financially self-sustaining rather than requiring huge volunteer effort. So I think that's the shift, is from a focus on events to focusing on really productive activity, but it's certainly not focusing on carbon emissions. And resilience comes through shifting from that focus on carbon emissions to focusing on actually what do we need.
Historically, communities have been carved out of decision making by local government, by private organisations, by entrepreneurs, and I think what we want to do is take a community approach to being entrepreneurs.
But we see working closely together with our local authority is absolutely crucial, and we've made a point of trying to involve them from the start and seeing how we can help the local authority to deliver their own goals, as well as encouraging them to help us to meet our goals.
One of the key things I think for me was that we just recently revised our environment strategy. It was very much a bottom-up process rather than the council saying, here's where we think the strategy is, can we consult on it? And that looked at food policy amongst other things. So it was more a bottom-up, I think, approach rather than a top-down, and that was really important for me that we took that forward, because that gave us a framework for how the council operates in the next few years.
Call your friendly councillor, you go to one of these surgeries, but invite them maybe to your project and get them involved, get them seeing what your project does. Putting your energy into being proactive. It's good to protest, I'm there and I've been there, but it's good to be having people in those positions of as well. So I like to think I'm in that position where I can represent consultation with a big C, but more than consultation, to actually have communities engaged and be active in the whole sort of process of how things happen in their local community.
There are people across Scotland who step by step are creating the kind of world they want to live in on their doorstep. No one's given them permission, they're just getting on with the things that seem important to them. The transition approach helps them focus on the place they live and on using the passion and focused interest of local people to build self-reliance and resilience in their communities.
By getting that wonderful resource of the community to come together, all the ideas that the community have, and getting them to feel actually responsible rather than waiting for somebody else to initiate from above. That feels to me to be very powerful. Growth from the bottom up.
We did our community survey and we had our 60% uptake in that, which was just amazing. So the community are really supportive, and I think they're looking for ways that they can improve how they live and live more sustainably.
As people get involved, they get less worried and they get more positive about the idea that they're also contributing to lower carbon.
About community engagement, that is the central key for absolutely everything that we do. If we get this right, then people actually become interested in our projects.
What does the South Side look like in 5 years' time? A lot more connected communities, a lot more activities and action happening in whether it's individual streets. There's a lot of tenements on the South Side, and within a single tenement block you can have maybe 400 households within a block and a street, so they're almost like small villages themselves, so it's trying to inspire and motivate these people to take action.
We would have a whole string of community-owned housing and food growing and energy producing areas, basically a network of community places which are showing that you can live in a sustainable in terms of energy, food and production.
My understanding of Sustaining Dunbar is that they kind of help the community and try and get them more environmentally aware and, as the name suggests, sustain Dunbar's economy.
It'll be easier for people to access land to grow food, it'll be easier for them to walk and cycle and use public transport. We'll have community-owned renewables in place, so we'll be having a sustainable income to fund our activities. And hopefully we'll have at least 2 community-owned and run shops on the high street.
Pedal can go forward as its own initiative and be self-funding in the future. I think there's enough creativity within this community, there's enough skills within Portobello to actually make that a reality.
Raising people's perception and awareness, that is a key factor. But the other side of it is, it's about having fun.
Communities are designing and working on projects for their future. Communities are looking at how they can become less dependent on money that's given to them and more self-sustaining. Communities are part of a network where they share ideas, experience and skills. This network is open to anyone and everyone who shares the vision of a future where people live and work in productive communities, who take care of one another and our shared natural resources.